I'm Reginald Charles Pridmore III. A motorcycle is one of the greatest things that ever came along in life for me. And I was about 15 and I was working in London with Lloyd's of London, and it didn't please me enough. I wanted to work around close to where I lived in Essex. We got bombed out during the war and we ended up living with relatives in Essex until we could get something. About 6 months later, we got a house pretty close to a Spitfire base, which was, as a kid, that was something else for me. As it goes along, I take the motorcycle very seriously simply because I started very young with it. And I got back into town and I started working for a roller shutter company, and sure enough, about 2 months of being there was a guy that came to join me, and what was he riding? A beautiful 500 Triumph Twin. And of course, I laugh every time I think of this guy, and he was pretty nice and lenient, and he says, take it for a ride. And I said, no way, I'd never ridden. He said, no, take it for a ride. And I said, okay. He said, well, you see the obelisk down there on the left-hand side? I said, yeah. He said, go down to that, come around it, and come back to me. I said, okay. And I didn't know quite what to expect. And it was very light rain coming at it at the same time. But I jumped on it and I went down. It was probably half a mile maybe down. And I thought, God, this is unbelievable. The balancing act of those two little black patches. Anyway, I missed the obelisk and I went to the next one. Boy, was he upset when I came back. Rightfully so. And I came back and gave him his bike back, and I said, what shop are you using? Where do you get it? Took me to a good friend who had some second-hand motorcycles, and I ended up purchasing, sold everything that I had to get the money to purchase a 350 Triumph Twin. So it all started there, but 6 months later I jumped onto a Thunderbird, which is a 650, and it kind of just started from there. I went to the old cafe, the Ace Cafe, 2-3 times a week with my friends. We'd go down there, and occasionally we'd do a little race where you had to go out and put the record on and go out and go around the traffic light and come back. There was just 4 or 5 of us in our little group. We used to just like to ride out, and basically it became competitive. Sure enough, I started realizing that I wanted to go faster and better and more streamlining, and I got a frame and I got the engine and I got the pieces all separate out, and I did what I had to do to them to make them, competitive, to end up with a really nice racing 500, which I did at Silverstone in the rain, and I won the first race there. But my mum, she said, get that stuff out from underneath your bed. I said, it's all clean and wrapped. She went, I don't care, get it out. So for some reason, she didn't like metal over her head. ACU was a tough outfit to get into, and that's where you sent your applications to become a part of the race, that particular race or that particular race. We both tried to get our bikes in. I tried to get my Triumph in. Sorry, rejection, it's full. And he tried to get his 350 AJS in. Sorry, it's full. I said to him, let's work a sneaky. I don't want to be too sneaky. I said, but let's work a sneaky. We tossed a coin for whose name would go down on the entry blank. And sure enough, Pridmore lost. From those entries, measured and marked under his name, Oliver Chester, we managed to get an entry. He raced the 350 race, and I raced the 500 race. And Ollie got his name on there, Ollie Chester. Well, after I ran that race, and I was so proud because I raced in the rain. It was so vicious. You had to take your goggles up because you couldn't see, but I won. And boy, it was kind of a big get-together at the back there for just a few hours. And as it turned out, about 2 weeks later, I was over his house in a different area, and they had a nice fireplace and a beautiful mantle. And I looked up there, and there's a silver cup, a little silver cup about that big. I picked it off and I read it, and it says, Oliver Chester. And I went, how long have you had this? He said, "Oh, that just came about a week ago." I said, "Didn't you feel like telling me?" You know, and it was my trophy, which I still have. First cup I'd ever won, you know. It was, but it says Oliver Chester on it. It says Silverstone on it. Da-da-da-da. Yep, I came to the States in 1964. And when we got off, unloaded, I took my car with me, so I drove it across country. All of these good intentions were laid down prior to. Well, I met somebody on board ship who I highly respected, like a priest. And he says, "You don't want to live in LA." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Disneyland's in LA." I said, "I got to go to Disneyland." He said, "Okay." He said, "But look," he said, 100 miles up the coast, I've got a friend. He'll give you a job." And that was really nice. So after Disneyland, we drove up to what we know as Santa Barbara now. And I got offered the job. But it wasn't suitable for me to do something I wasn't familiar with. And I was very truthful with him. But I heard that there was a new Honda store, motorcycle store in town, just opened up. So that's basically what I did. I went and worked for him. Well, first of all, he had this big Triumph sign put up. And I thought, no, I couldn't be that lucky. So I went in, I said, "You're selling Triumph?" He said, "Well, there's 3 of them over there." I said, "Oh." I said, "You needing any mechanics?" He went, "Well, you know Triumphs?" I said, "Yeah, just a couple of years ago," I said, "I was at the Coventry for 2 weeks on a course." He went, "Was you really?" He said, "You got the job." So I started working for a very important Honda dealer in Santa Barbara. Honda of Santa Barbara, Al Baltus. Yeah, he was good. He was a good friend all the time through. And about into the first year and a half, they did some really minor stuff around town with motorcycles, riding planks and playing little games with sections and da-da-da. And people kept giving me bikes to ride. So I did, and then all of a sudden, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to see if I can get one of these, come into town, Santa Barbara Airport. I can get a position in there to go ride. So he gave me a bike, a little 90cc, no big deal. I went out and I had my big boots on, and all I remember was going out, and I think I won that division. It was just a 100cc division, plain little street, no special dadas on it at all. But after that, he wanted to start to do things that were bigger in some respects, and in other respects not suitable for me. And what happened was, there was another dealer just in the next town over that just said, "Come on, I want you to ride my bikes for me." And he's just taken on Kawasaki, and he gave me a 250. He said, "Just use it to go backwards and forwards to home." He said, "And just enter it in some of the 250 production races." Sure enough, I did. I won the production events on 250 Kawasaki's. Yeah, we went to Riverside, we went to Orange County, we went to all of those places with 1 or 2 different bikes. And that's what started to pump this whole thing about Pridmore racing. That was in '68. It was good in as much as some of the stuff now cost a lot of money. When the 3-cylinder came into town from Japan, I wanted to buy the first one, and my dealer said, "Well, you just buy the engine." He said, "I'll absorb the rest." And it was a real early one because it had engine numbers of 1917. The engine, I remember the engine number, the last 2 digits were 17. And I put it into a Manx frame, and I did some bigger brakes, da-da-da-da, and I took it down to LAX, put it on a ship, and I brought it over to England to go race the Isle of Man and Brands Hatch. I used to live pretty close to Brands Hatch, so I was very familiar with that. And it started leading us into superbikes, which was mentioned here long before it went to Europe, because they're claiming now it started over there. And they were calling TZ750s superbikes, which they were super, but that wasn't it. It was more to do with the standard everyday 2-up bike. That was what it led into. And I went from that Kawasaki dealer to the Suzuki dealer, who financially made things work better for me. And that's when I started with Norton. That was a 750 Norton Commando. Great machine. As soon as we got one from the dealer, I went out and started wiping the clock with it, you know. 71 was my deal with the Suzuki shop that I worked at, that had taken on BMW, or at least I should say they had Norton, and I was buzzing on Norton. But then all of a sudden he said, what do you think, should we? These new BMWs, 1970, you know, /5s, great machines compared to what they had, BMWs. And as it turned out, I was doing quite well with the Nortons, but then I thought, well, you know what, for reasons behind what we do to advertise and all that, let's enter a BMW. And we didn't have much luck the first time out, but then I got a call from BMW, and it was a late Friday evening that said, we see you running BMWs, because I won a few races with a Norton. And I mentioned, yeah. He said, well, we'd like you to come and try one of our bikes to see if you like it enough to ride it. I said, with all the cylinders hanging out on the side? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, it's a standard BMW, and that's how it started. And then I got, in 5 years with them, I got about with run for BMW. When I used to turn up at the track with the BMW and that, people used to either liked it or they made fun of it, because it was known as an old man's machine. And the later ones were competitive. And I started, what is this man doing, the paper said, big, bold, what is this man doing on the BMW, you know. And this one guy didn't like me too much, but he came over and he said, why are you still riding that old crap, he called it, you know. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I should have bags on the back like they do when they go touring. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. So I put a set of bags on the back. I went out and won the races and beat him anyway. So it was kind of neat, because he quietened down after that one. And it wasn't like pick a fight or anything. It was just, you know, and at first I thought it was serious enough, but he said, no, I was just kidding. Yeah. But I did, and I beat him, and then the BMW behind me came from a very short notice. Nobody knew about it, at least we didn't, I didn't, because they saw the interest in what we were doing in the US with BMWs. And as it turned out, 2 of these motorcycles, one for myself. Well, little did I know, but Guido probably had started in already on doing what he thought had to be done. And that's how it all began. And Kurt and I ran a couple of times. In fact, he was with me once for a shoot at Daytona when we ran those bikes. When you approach doing some kind of a job at any time, you want to be first class if you can. I look at it like that. But there were some aspects of the bike that were not there suitable to me. We changed this and that and made it a little better. Don't crash it or do anything, but do a good job on it. And Daytona, we ran with a big batch of TZs, and obviously it started getting eaten up pretty good, but I think I was running 11th when it finally quit. And we were 2 laps down from the end of a race. But it sounded bitching around the bank end, because somebody gave me some footage they took, and yeah, because they did run good RPMs. I started riding the R90S in 1974, and we ran that right the way through several different races in Ontario and so forth, right until Daytona 76. Well, we had practice on Friday. Nothing like a good surprise, you know, when it comes at you, but Guido was out there with me, and Helmut Kern, who was the boss of the West Coast, he didn't make it or couldn't make it, so they sent Udo, and Udo and I got along pretty well. And I I came in, put my gear on, I went out, I did maybe 2 or 3 laps. Came back in, he said, "What do you want changed?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "Well, you must want something." He said, "You know, it can't be perfect the way it is right now." I said, "Leave it alone." I said, "It's working great." When he got so peed off, he ended up changing the plugs. And I said, "If that plug lets me down tomorrow," I said, "I'm going to kill you, you know." But as it turned out, it ran as good as it did when I went down there to test it. And then AMA comes and says, "Okay, a little surprise for everybody. We're not going to run it in the clockwise direction. We're going to run it anti-clockwise." And everybody just got ripped up. And 21 turns down there. It was kind of a big track. And sure enough, I did pretty good. Yeah, we contacted Rob because of, I did at least anyway, because of a handling aspect. And it wasn't just another Brit doing the job. He built all those bikes that were clean in-house in 1971. Dick Mann had one, and Gary had one, and a whole bunch of the guys. But Mike Hailwood came across to race one at Daytona. He's broke, or something went wrong with his, but he was one of my big heroes, naturally. Many people looked at him like he was the best and the greatest. Gary went out, something mechanical wasn't functioning. So I really blasted that. I got in front of McLaughlin on the last lap. And that was the planned thing there, because I knew he was running pretty strong and we were pretty close to being the same. But I came out onto the banking and just headed to the flag. And as I recall, I never used to look back. And I used to tell people, stop looking back. Don't worry about it. What did I do? I took a look back and he was drafting me. And at first it looked like about 12 bike lengths. And then when we were coming around where the banking ceases and it gets into the flats, I looked back and he was about 6 bikes behind me. And just before we got to the flag, it was very, very close. And the outcome of that for me was something I can smile at right now and laugh about, because they took a photo finish and people were walking around chatting already like they knew what it was. I didn't even know what it was. So when they got the flag and that, they mentioned, and I think it was like 4 inches is about all it was. And I'd never won Daytona. I was hoping to win that one, but it didn't happen. But the Germans still thought it was the greatest thing ever. About 20 of them attacked me and ripped my shirt off and put me up on their shoulders. And it was for me, it was just like I'd seen it before with other people, but I never thought it happened to me. It's kind of weird. So, but it was kind of sad. That's the last BMW thing we kind of had going down. We had plans to go into '77 with BMW. Right after the flag fell at Daytona, a certain person from BMW come and said, "That's it." I said, "What's it?" That's the total attempt at running BMWs. I said, "What happened to our dealer doing the '77?" And it didn't come about. So going to Kawasaki, I had actually two offers to go, and I chose the first one because of a dealer. Again, it was great, and we did great. Racecrafters was the first dealer. I had a certain person say to me, "Those BMWs are eat you alive with that Kawasaki, Pridmore." I said, "You think so?" Well, when it come to ride the Kawasaki, made everybody go gulp, you know. And then that's the first race that we did against BMW. I think Ronnie Pierce was still on it, on one, or Johnny Bakersfield. Yeah, and I'm not sure if he was on it. It was a production type looking bike, BMW, what he was riding. But it was, Johnny used to get all of his pieces from BMW. Yeah, we had 1 or 2 big sharks. Cook Nielsen, 4 or 5 years prior, said, "Hey, teach me to race." He used to like Cook, good guy, great specialist when it comes to motorcycles. And sure enough, he got better and better and better. But what we weren't aware of is that they had some sneaky guys in the factory back there in Italy. They had special cams and all kinds of goodies. And Cook's best friend put all of this stuff into the bike prior to that Daytona. and Cook was on his own. He just left everybody. The Ducati just ran beautifully. Schuster was a killer. And in one case, we used to, back in New Hampshire when we raced there was a place in town that everybody used to come into, and because it has such good shrimp and good lobster, and it was just great. But one night we went there, and one of the funniest things that happened that you can smile at or you can pee your pants in it, I don't know, but we went in there and we couldn't get our table. We said, you know, we come here pretty regularly. He said, yeah, I know. He said, but be comfortable. We said, well, I'll have you probably in a seat in 10, 15 minutes. I said, okay, thanks a lot. Schuster's going, you know, swearing, great big guy. And he started moving his head around, looking at, you know, wonder what's going on. I wonder if I could. And he picked the table, which was completely occupied by maybe 6 or 8 people from Yoshimura. Yeah. And he left our little group, he went over to it, and he grabbed the 2 back legs and picked it up and walked it outside and put it down again. And Yoshimura was sitting right on the chair. That was one of the funniest things. He put him outside, yeah. But I do remember that. But we made things happen that were good enough for winning races, and that was what this was all about, you know, was winning. I got more interested in sidecars because it was more of a chore to make it do what you really wanted it to do and do it well enough to not win. I just had this big thing because I won some of the Long Beach and 1 or 2 of the locals, you know, the smaller stuff. But to get into the big stuff was the other man, and I thought, God, just got to go. It was a big challenge. So I started in on that, and I got the right man, Rob North, working for Donny Vesco, who had just set the land speed record at 318. And when he got everything back to me, he said, Reg, we're going to build your sidecar with one of these TZ engines in it. I said, really? Because I knew what that was about. He said, I'm going to take the heads and cylinders off of what you saw us run at Bonneville. I said, you kidding? I said, you put in one of those engines, went 318 miles per hour? It's just kind of a joke, but it really wasn't. He used one of those 2 engines. I had to sit on a bike about a day ago, and I said to myself, I used to race this bike. It's very different. It's a big, strong running, 1,000, and it's got an awful lot of beautiful pieces of artwork with the tank. The way it was fitted up was great. And at the time it was big news, got a lot of press on that, and we ran both of them at several different racetracks. So, you know, with the matter of trying to change a few things around to make it work for you, that was possible and that was done. And I remember Udo being our main mechanic at the track, and nothing was too much trouble for him, and that was what we needed, you know, great guy. There was a time at Laguna Seca I came around to win the last race of the year and the national and the championship. I came around what we knew was turn 9, and the grandstands were just full of people. Boy, but did I get the old treatment when I finally crossed the flag, got the checkered, and after that, you know, people just offering me bottles of wine, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it was kind of neat. And at Daytona, a lot of people, you know, always signing something for somebody, you know. Will you sign my shirt? Will you sign my... Yeah, that was kind of funny too. Had a good time with that.